Hey everybody, yeah, this will be a really quick one today. I just wanted to be sure that everybody was kind of aware of some of the resources that are out there in terms of the major quarterly releases and, some different places you can go to get more information about what's going on with Eloqua. And while Jason and John were talking, there's something I pulled out of there that I kind of want to amplify after this part of the presentation. I thought might be interesting to people. So let's go to the meat of this. So just starting, I'll just go through each of these really quickly. The first one is just that, as I'm sure you all know, when you regularly log into Eloqua, you'll see in-app notifications that pop up before you actually proceed into the application. So that's where, most users are going to see, information going on with releases or goings on with Eloqua. Especially around the major releases, you'll get notified like a week in advance that the release is scheduled to happen on such and such a date, and expect an outage during that time. Those sorts of things. You can also create your own notifications if you want. If you go into the settings there, you over in the left. You can dig in and just do the same sort of thing for anything that you need to notify your organization about. Another one, which I actually think I'm going to demo this, and I'll log in and I'll share my screen in a second. Um, is that you can actually sign up for important notifications through your user. So if you don't have access to the users area, you'll just have to ask somebody, an administrator or somebody to grant that for you if you're interested in these sorts of things. Here we go. So I'll just share Eloqua really quick. And I've just gone ahead and jumped over to the settings area. So in this red users and security box, if you have a users option here, you just click that and find your user in the search and scroll down to the bottom here. And it's this receive emergency communications from Eloqua. So you can switch this to yes and save, and you'll start getting those. And you actually have to go in that way to get to this screen. You can also go up here to profile, but you won't see that as an option in here. So this is just like a subset of some of the things that you would see through that other screen. Next up is the community. So, if you're not aware, Topliners has moved to a new platform, so it's nice and fresh. The design has changed. It's easier to use and everything, but a lot of the content was migrated over as well. So a lot of the same things are there, just with a kind of a new, refreshed look. And so when you're logged in, which you should get an account if you don't have one, um, request access to the Eloqua Insiders group. There's a lot of useful information there, and that's where a lot of good discussions will happen. And that's where you'll also see the release resource center and get these nice quarterly briefings on the releases before they happen. So, I try to attend those every quarter myself and ask questions. If I don't have the time, there's always a recording posted later, which is well worth watching. You may think that it's like super dry material, but if you're actively using Eloqua, it can be really interesting. You get to see all that cool stuff that they're coming out with before it happens. And, of course, you get to better prepare for the release so that you can start leveraging those things once they become available. Um, Along with that, the Release Resource Center, and those briefings, you'll get release documentation as it comes out. What I wanted to highlight here is just that this is basically the URL, and you just have to substitute in the year and the quarter to get directly to a certain release. So all the releases are lettered A, B, C, D, and then it's just a two-digit year before that. And so 20D just went down. You could put in 20D in here and go straight to those notes, and it gets into the gory details of all the cool things that you need to know about. And then the Eloqua system status is another one. If you're seeing any issues on your pod or anything like that, that's the URL that you can just directly go to. I don't remember that personally, so I always just search Eloqua status on Google, and it's like a live feed of what's going on with any current issues. So that's definitely come in handy over the years, just being aware of those things. And finally, we've got just the standard documentation. But beyond that, the support portal has a lot of documents as well that aren't really out there in the wild. So they're not on topliners, they're not in the official documentation or anything. So if you have a user with the Oracle support system, you can log in there and do some searching around, and sometimes you'll find documents that will explain exactly what you're looking for and you just can't find anywhere else. And you don't have to open a ticket with support or anything. You can just go through the knowledge base there and find some really useful things. And so then the rest of this, I just wanted to kind of give some examples of these things. So here's an example of one of the login notifications around the recent release. And this is just a highlight of that area on the user. Here we've got the new top liners. This is what that release documentation will look like. And so you can see here on the left, we've got a lot of the recent releases going back to last year. And I think maybe probably even earlier if you dig around there. But system status, so this is what it looks like. It's really just, it's like a blog roll. And the support portal, what that looks like, and the help documentation. So, just a few things, different places you can look to get more information, especially around releases.
I like to mention that typically when I log into an Eloqua account, that's when I get a lot of release information. There's that splash screen upon login that provides you with details on upcoming updates or releases or downtime planned or emergency stuff. So I find those to be the most valuable from my point of view.
Yeah, and if it's been a while since you logged in, you might get whatever the last notification was.
Hey, this is Clark. I've got a question. Did anybody have any issues with the 20D update? I'd heard a couple teams had some questions about images not loading and pulling segments, but I hadn't heard enough people having the same issue, so I don't know if it was a common thing across that update.
Yeah, I personally hadn't heard anything. Clark, Jesse, had you heard much?
Yeah, the only issue that I've seen so far is where one of our clients is pulling the form HTML using the API into their website, and they needed to update the ciphers on the authentication that they were using. So they're working through that, and so that that's one of those things that's in the release notes. But if you didn't look at the release notes, or it wasn't passed on to that team, that's the kind of thing where it's like, and you might encounter an issue like that. But luckily, it's documented. We know what to do and working through it.
Good, nice. That's good to hear.
So I wanted to, and feel free to leave if you want at this point, but I just wanted to pick out and amplify something that I kind of heard these guys talk about earlier, which is totally separate from from this presentation, but I thought it was kind of interesting in that, and to me it's interesting too, because Oracle's kind of working through this too right now with Eloqua, and it's around like changing the branding and the feel of a website or email or whatever. And one thing I think that what Jason was saying is that you don't want to make like sudden big changes to anything. And it made me think back to when I was doing web development and reading about that sort of thing. And what you see out there in the wild, and I just wanted to kind of show this off, is that major brands, they don't make these like huge changes to things. They just naturally kind of like make small adjustments to things over time. And so you kind of see that here with Eloqua in terms of this main page has been changed fairly dramatically, but the rest of it, we're going to see these changes kind of work their way in over the next few releases. And so that's, that principle in action here in Eloqua. But the other thing was, if you never heard of the Wayback Machine, this would be probably just a fun exercise to do. Go back and look at something like Amazon. They're masters of this. And go back to like 2000, go way, way back. And you can see where they have been crawling Amazon.com over the years, right? So we go back to March 1 of 2000. You can, get this snapshot of what it looks like back then. If you go back to some date, 20 years ago, you'll get to see what it looked like at that time, and then just go like month to month and see what kind of changes they made. And you'll see like little changes here and there, and very rarely are you going to see like some major design overhaul. And the really cool thing is that here in 2020, the Amazon homepage is really close, I think, still to what you would see back in 2000. It's just like some aesthetic changes that they've made, but like the bones of it are still like the same 20 years later. And that's all I wanted to to put out there.
I love that, Jesse. I know that when the release came out with the new design, it was all over our internal chat channels. People were excited about it and logging in specifically to see the new designs, and so it made some waves. People notice when you make changes.
And this is like the third iteration, maybe the fourth iteration of the design of Eloqua. If you think back to, or Eloqua 10, if you think back to when it was first released, there were a lot of overtones of Mac OS in there, and now it's it changed to the Oracle branding, the old Oracle branding, and now we're getting into the Redwood styling of things. But it's like, it's cool to see those natural progressions and how they're rolled out over time. Look, unfortunately, the Wayback Machine is not being kind to me. But another good one to look at too is like
being way broken.
Yeah. Another good one to look at is like CNN. They're also like very disciplined about rolling out those design updates over years.
And that's not to say that they're not doing testing with that to small segments of their lists, right? Like they may display the new idea that they've got for their home page to a small section of highly engaged recipients, so that they can understand how it's working better or worse than the previous pages. If it's a positive change, then they might make that change full scale and make a major update to their site. But in a lot of cases, the test is just to see if this makes any difference at all, and to build upon the learning that they get from that. So that might not be something that you can do easily with your current website, but you can do it easily with emails. And so taking a small segment of your email list and sending them a slightly different version, and seeing how the response rates and the engagement changes based on having a slightly different version and making those incremental changes. All right, well, we will wrap it up for today. Thank you everybody again for joining the call. Watch for your emails for the next user group. Also a reminder that you can see the recordings of today's session and all of our past sessions by going to activate.tegrita.com/sports-entertainment. Those recordings of this week should be up probably mid to late next week. And then watch your emails for the invite for our February sports user group. Again, thank you everybody for participating. Thank you, John from Rover, and thank you, Jesse, for giving us some insights into Eloqua.